Hey, Walt here from StogieReview.com with another video cigar review, and I'm pretty much just trudging right along with the remainder of the Studio Tobacco sampler, which was sent to all of the advisory board members not too long ago, but it's getting to be several weeks now. And the next cigar in line is the Cain Daytona. I'm not even quite sure how I'm going to do this. I should probably maybe think about doing it that way. And this cigar is modeled after the Cain line. And if you're not familiar with the Cain hierarchy, well, maybe I'll talk about that as I light the cigar. And for the time being, just kind of talk about the construction of the stick. This is a torpedo shape. This is not the one that came in the sampler. There was a Robusto in that one. This one was handed to me by my local shop owner, and I'm really not sure of the specifics as far as the size is concerned. Color-wise, it looks very consistent from head to foot, from what I can see, not counting the footband. It feels nicely packed with tobacco, and the tapered head is nice and firm. I've got just a little bit of a break in the formation of the cap, which is probably going to unravel a little bit when it's time to clip and light, but we'll see how it goes. Got a nice cedary aroma to the foot. So anyway, as I was saying about the sort of the hierarchy of the brand. First there was the standard Cain, Habano, and Maduro, and those were released, I guess, last year at some point before the trade show. And what you had was a cigar that was marketed as straight Ligero, and it was made up of I think it was like approximately 80-some-odd% Ligero with some Seco in it to help it burn. And there were Ligero proportions on the packaging, and I don't remember what they were off the top of my head. And they told you how much percentage of each of these three Ligeros were in the brand, and ultimately you wind up with a cigar that was really powerful and marketed as full flavored. When I smoked that cigar, or I smoked both of them, just to kind of be nice, that cigar wasn't up my alley, and I smoked very few of them after that initial experience. I smoked enough to give the line a fair shot, but they just weren't for me. And I just kind of walked away from the brand at that point. Later on, there was the marriage between the nub and Cain lines with the Cain nub varieties, and I still kind of stayed away. I smoked one or two of them, same blend, different size. And some point later, there was the release of the Cain F, which was basically the Cain line, and the proportions of the two Ligeros were flipped. So you got more of one type of Ligero and less of another. And what wound up happening is a cigar was created that was like mucho powerful, and I found it to be much more flavorful. Really enjoyed the line. The first couple of Fs that I smoked were in the Robusto format. I really enjoyed them. When I did get a chance to smoke the Cain F nub, I was much happier with it. I think the flavor depth increased considerably over the Robusto size. And then, I just kind of fell in love with the Lancero. I love that cigar to death, and smoke as many as I can get my grubby little fingers on. And now we're seeing the Cain Daytona release, where the F was sort of going up the spectrum. This is coming back down. And the marketing on this one is all Jalapa Ligero, or all Jalapa tobacco, which is making for, or what is said to be, a milder cigar, more focused on flavor and not so much all the power of the standard Cain line. So this is sort of opposite of the F release, in the sense that it's stepped down the power scale. Now, I've been sitting on this cigar for a little while, or the Daytona line anyway. You know, not really sure whether or not I wanted to smoke it, mainly because, or not so much not sure that I wanted to smoke it, but kind of reluctant because I'm not a fan of the Habano and Maduro. So when something came out that wasn't the F, I was, you know, I wasn't really eager to run out and try it. And what sort of finally just got me up off my ass was Jerry's last Weekend Smoke, where he mentioned that, you know, he wasn't a cheerleader for the Cain line. However, the Daytona really impressed him. So what I wound up doing was I commented back and told him, you know, if you like this so much, I'm going to try one tonight. And that night I tried my first one, and this will be my second. So I got my cigar lit. Let's take a look. Didn't get a whole lot of smoke there, but it was kind of dry. It's got a really nice spiciness to the flavor profile. It's a little sweet. It's dry. And it's got sort of a, almost like a little bit of a papery kind of taste. Yeah, it's like a papery, cardboard kind of flavor. But I'm really liking the intensity of the spice up front. And the focus is definitely on the flavor. A lot of the other Cain products that I've smoked, or most notably the Habano and the Maduro, they were all power. I mean, they were virtually tasteless across my palate. And that was one of the things I really disliked about the cigar. I'm not getting that impression from this one. I'm definitely getting flavor across the palate. Actually getting a little bit of like a salty flavor at this point. And the power is definitely there. It's just much more subdued. So we're off to a very good start. Much, much better than the start I had with my first Cain Daytona. So I'm going to smoke a bit more and see how this one goes. And then, after a little bit, I'll be back and we'll take a look at how the cigar is progressing. Well, I'm back and still plugging along on my Cain Daytona. And I didn't even think about it, but right before I turned the camera on, I knocked the ash off, and it kind of ruins the whole dramatic long ash thing. But it was holding pretty firm. I mean, it didn't take much effort to knock the you know, inch-and-a-half long ash off the end of the cigar, but it was nice and compacted, no flaking or flowering. It does have a kind of powdery effect. You know, when it plopped in the ashtray, it busted apart. So on the cigar, it holds well and doesn't make a mess. But I would imagine if it were to land in your lap, it would probably just kind of hit and go poof and wind up everywhere. But as far as the construction goes, burning characteristics and all that, it's going really well. The burn line is nice and thin. It's fairly even. It varies a little bit now that I knocked the ash off the end of the cigar. I'm getting a good volume of smoke. And as I mentioned in I guess it was the Cain Double F video, sometimes I get a little concerned with the tapered Oliva cigars. They always, well, I should say, more often than not, when I pick them up, they tend to be tighter than the non-tapered stuff. And it almost seems as though not enough material is removed, and then the tapered end is compressed into that torpedo shape, and you end up with like a really tight wad of tobacco at the end. It's really tough to draw through. But in this case, it's effortless. It's coming right through. I'm getting a nice mouthful of smoke. It's nice and dense, easy to get through the sinus. Not only is it dense and easy to get through the sinus as far as, you know, like being able to move thick smoke, it's also easy in the sense that it's not aggressive on the sinus. I mean, there's some spiciness there, but it's not the kind that, you know, makes your eyes water and kind of stings a bit. This one is kind of gentle in that sense. Across the palate, however, it is a little aggressive. I mean, my palate doesn't feel worn down now, but I can feel like by the end of the cigar it may be, you know, I'm getting sort of a tiring kind of feel on the tongue and roof of my mouth. As far as the body's concerned, this is full-bodied. It's not nearly as full-bodied as the F, and it's not quite as full as from what I remember of the Cain Habano and Maduro. So this is definitely a step down. Flavor-wise, this is a giant step up from the standard Cain line, you know, the Habano and Maduro. This has got nice flavor, and it really does put the emphasis back on flavor and sort of pushes the intensity off a little bit, unlike the last one where I thought that the intensity shined through and the flavors were sort of pushed off to the side. The flavors are definitely coming through, and this one is much better than the first one I smoked. You know, when Jerry posted his weekend smoke, he had mentioned that this was really impressive to him, and I was eager to try it. And when I lit up that first one, I was thinking, you know, I guess we're not really on the same page here. He was really impressed with this, and I'm not so much. You know, I'm not sort of throwing my hands in the air and getting all excited. It was, you know, it was okay. And the first third was not very good. The cigar really turned around in the second and final third. But in this case, earlier on in the cigar is much better. I'm getting more flavor intensity. The flavors are brighter. They come across the palate cleaner. It doesn't have any muddy sort of flavor combinations. There's a lot of spice, and it's kind of like sort of like a cinnamony kind of spice, and there's a fair bit of sweetness to it as well. I'm getting a little bit of a woody flavor, which leans more towards like cedar, but not really. And it's also got a bit of a smoky aroma, and every now and again I'm getting a salty kind of flavor. It's not consistent. It's kind of comes and goes, and I'm doing more talking than I am smoking in the cigar. It's pretty much going out on me, so I'm not getting a full draw. Whoa. But so far I'm impressed with this stick. I'm enjoying it, and I'm really interested to see where the second and final third go. I mean, because this one is smoking much better than the first. So either the first is a fluke, or the second is a fluke, or you know, I don't know. I definitely need to smoke more to see where the line goes and see where the consistency is. I only have one more, which is the Robusto from the sampler pack, but from what I understand, these are available on the market now. So you know, maybe we'll start to see them. Actually, Mike from Buckhead had them on sale the other day. Actually, by the time you see this video, he'll probably still have those Cain Daytona on sale if he hasn't sold out yet. But I am going to be going to a Studio Tobacco Tour event. I wasn't sure whether or not I was going to make one. And I wasn't sure whether I was going to make one because there wasn't anything really close. The one I'm going to is probably 2.5 hours away, if not a little bit more. It's out in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. It's out about a half an hour away from Cigar Fest, and the event's being held on the Thursday before the Cigar Fest weekend. So Mike and I are going to go up to the Studio Tobacco event on Thursday, and I'm going to try to pick up a couple more of the Cain Daytona and see where the consistency's at. You know, we're going to do the whole Cigar Fest thing on Friday. We'll stay up in the Pocono area. We'll stay Thursday night. Friday we'll probably spend some time with Jason, and then in the evening we'll do the AJ Fernandez Man of War event that they always tend to do. You know, the sort of pre-fest thing. And then Saturday is the big event, which is I think I'm going up there August 28th, 29th, and 30th. So there should be lots of coverage like last year. Actually, there should be more coverage than last year. and it should be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. So kind of pointless to tell you all that stuff with it being, you know, like a month and a half out, but I told you anyway. So sit tight. I'll be back in just a second, and then we'll take a look at the second third of the Cain Daytona, and we'll go from there. Well, I am back and still plugging along on the Cain Daytona. And as you can see, the ash is just beautiful. Really light in color. No flaking, flowering. Just doing really well in the burn department, or in the, you know, the construction department. One of the reasons why I turned the camera back on instead of waiting until I was much further on in the cigar is it suddenly turned sour on me, and it's not very good. And I don't know whether it's a result of this tiny hole that I've got in the filler, which you may or may not be able to see. It was one of the reasons why I touched it up, so it would kind of stand out a little bit more. But I've got a small hole, and the heat is traveling down that hole. I can definitely feel it warmer on the palate, and suddenly the flavor profile just shifted into something really harsh. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of bums you out, you know. The cigar was doing really well, it was tasting great, and now all of a sudden the flavor has shifted, and I think it's a result of that void in the filler. So, you know, I'm hoping that I get past it. I've had this happen numerous times in the past with a variety of cigars. Sometimes you can burn through them and everything's fine, but at this point it kind of sucks. And it happened kind of late in the cigar. You know, in worst case scenario, I've actually cut the end of the cigar and relit, and can sometimes avoid that problem. Sometimes it just, even cutting it and relighting it, the hole is there. I mean, it's not huge. I'm definitely not going to be cutting the cigar to see what to try to get around it. I'll try to smoke through it, but it really put a damper on the cigar for me. That sucks. Well, I'm back, and I'm kind of surprised I'm back. I was actually gearing up to get rid of the cigar. That hole in the filler got a little bit bigger. At the end of the cigar got really hard and completely black. It got to the point where it just hardened and blackened so much that I was actually wringing it on my ashtray, and the flavor just went totally sour. So I was getting ready to turn the camera back on just to do a quick, this cigar sucks, and to toss it in the ashtray and say how, if you take my first experience and my second experience, the first one having a lousy first third and the second one having a lousy final third, and combined them, you'd have one good solid cigar. But fortunately the cigar turned around and it is doing much better now. Things were kind of grim for a moment there, and I was getting kind of bummed out and thinking, what do I have that's small that I can smoke in a small time frame before I call it a night. And then next thing you know, the cigar just comes alive, and just fantastic. I'm really glad that happened. So now that the cigar is smoking properly again, I'm getting loads of smoke, as you can see, floating around. Coats the palate really well, easy to get through the sinus. The flavor profile really hasn't changed up much, and that seems to be typical with the Cain line as a whole. They're more or less the same throughout. I mean, there are variations here and there, slight, but the core flavor profile stays the same. I'm getting a woody flavor. There's lots of spiciness. There's a sweet tone. I'm getting a smoky kind of aroma off the cigar. There's a bit of a salty flavor that comes in and out, and that really sums up the cigar. So in essence, my first experience with the Cain Daytona was was less than desirable for the first third. From the second third on, the cigar performed really well, and it smoked wonderfully. This one, it had a grim moment, but it turned around and smoked really well. So I definitely need to smoke more to form a consensus and say whether or not that I really enjoy this line or not. But with the 2 samples that I've had and 1 more to go, I think I can go out on a limb and say that I enjoyed this cigar, and I'm looking forward to smoking more. You know, the first chance I'm going to have to get more is at that event in Stroudsburg at Atlantic Cigar in a month and a half, to almost 2 months. But while there, I'm definitely going to pick up some more Cain Daytonas and see how they go. So that really wraps it up, and my mood has really changed. I was kind of down for a little while when the cigar went south, but good stuff. So that's it. So until next time, happy smoking.